are going to start the unit 2 of our botany from inter first year, and the name of our unit is structural organization in plants, that is called as morphology. And from that we are having only one chapter, and that is morphology of flowering plants. So in this we are going to learn the various topics like root, stem, leaves, inflorescence, flower, fruit, and last is the seed. So these are the various topics that we are going to cover in this chapter. So now without wasting our time, let us move forward towards the first topic, that is root. So what is a root actually? We all know that in majority of the dicotyledonous plants, the direct elongation of the radicle leads to the formation of the primary root, which grows into the soil, right? That is the base of the plant actually, and it bears lateral roots of several orders that are referred to as secondary roots, tertiary roots, and etc. And the primary roots and its branches constitute the taproot system. The monocotyledonous plants, the primary root is short-lived and is replaced by a large number of roots. These roots originate from the base of the stem and constitute the fibrous root system. So you have to remember that normally these primary roots, they will be consisting of the taproots actually, and later on in monocotyledonous plants what will happen, the primary root, it is very short-lived and is replaced by a large number of roots actually, and they constitute the fibrous root system. As seen in the monocots, in some plants like Monstera and banyan tree, roots arise from the parts of the plant other than the radicle and are called as adventitious roots. So adventitious roots are the roots that are arising from the parts of the plants other than the radicle, and the example for that you can take as the banyan tree. I hope you all have witnessed the banyan tree in your life, right? So there we can see that it will be consisting of long roots that will be arising from the parts other than the radicle, and such kind of roots will be called as adventitious roots. And the main functions of the root system are absorption of water and minerals from the soil, providing a proper anchorage to the plant parts, storing reserve food material, and synthesis of some plant growth regulators. So one more main function of the roots is storing the reserve food material. Such kind of roots can be termed as the storage roots, and the best example for that will be the potato. That was all about the introduction of the root. Now let us proceed towards the modifications of roots. So roots in some plants change their shape and structure and become modified to perform functions other than absorption and conduction of water and the food material, and they are modified for storage of food and respiration and etc. Tap roots of carrot, turnip, adventitious roots of sweet potato, and fibrous roots in asparagus become swollen due to the storage of food. So these are few examples for the modifications of the root. And if we proceed forward, let me ask you one thing, that whether, like, have you ever wondered what could be those hanging structures or that support a banyan tree? I hope you all have witnessed that, right? So what it is? These are called as prop roots or the pillar roots. Similarly, the stems of maize and sugarcane have supporting roots coming out of the lower nodes of the stem, and these are called as stilt roots. We can easily see them on the sugarcane. We can see a small hair-like extensions from the nodes of the stem, and they will be termed as stilt roots. And in mangrove plants such as Rhizopora and Avicennia growing in swammy areas, many roots come out of the ground and grow vertically upwards. Such roots are called as pneumatophores, and to get oxygen for respiration in plants that grow on other plants, that is called as epiphytes like Vanda, the adventitious roots are specialized to absorb moisture from atmosphere, and such roots are called as velamen roots that we can easily found in the plant that will be called as Vanda. Some partial parasites like Viscum and Striga send hosterial roots into the xylem of the host plant to get water and minerals, while others, that is complete parasitic plants will be there, no, like Cuscuta and Rafflesia, extend their hosterial roots into both xylem and phloem to obtain both water as well as food from the host plants. And in members of Fabaceae, bacteria known as Rhizobium. Rhizobium is the name of the bacteria that is helpful for the nitrogen fixation. Inhabit the root system to fix atmospheric nitrogen by forming nodules, and such roots are called as nodular roots. In some plants, the roots are chlorophyllous and perform photosynthesis, as in tinea film. So that was all about the modifications of root, where we can see that roots are modified depending on the various functions, right? So, and few examples of the different modifications of the roots are nodular roots, adventitious roots, prop roots, tilt roots, and etc. So that was all about the root. Now let us move forward towards our next topic, that is stem. So now, what are the features that distinguish a stem from a root? What is the main difference actually? The stem is the ascending part of the axis bearing branches, leaves, flowers and fruits. We all know this thing, and it develops from the plumule of the embryo of the germinating seed. And the stem bears nodes and internodes, and the region of the stem where leaves are born are called nodes, while internodes are the portions between two nodes. Actually, we all know that a plant body consists of different major parts. From that, the one will be the roots that we have already learned, and the next one can be the stem actually. That will be present on the upper surface of the soil, we can say, and it consists of few main parts like nodes and internodes. And what are nodes? Actually, the region of the stem where leaves are born. Fine, the region from where leaves are arising. Just suppose directly leaves are arising from the stem, then these regions can be called as nodes. And coming to the internodes, they are the portions between two nodes, and the stem bears buds which may be terminal or axillary, and stem is generally green when young and later often becomes woody and dark brown. So initially the stem is always green in color, and later on it will be changed to dark brown color and it will become woody. So the main functions of the stem is to spread out branches that bear leaves and flowers and fruits. It conducts water, minerals and photosynthesis. Stems in some plants perform other functions such as storage of food, vegetative propagation, giving mechanical support and protection, and etc. So these are the few uses, few advantages of the stem. Now let us move forward towards the modifications. What are the modifications of stem? Let us see that. So same like root, stem is also modified into certain structures based on the necessity, based on the functions performed by them. So now let us see what are the different modifications the stem is being modified into. So normally till this class you have learned that the stem will be the part that will be present on the upper surface of the soil, and it will be like standing and in erect position, right? But now let me tell you one thing, that they may not be always be typically like what they are expected to be, and they are modified to perform different functions. In some plants the stem grows into soil contrary to its normal aerial habitat. So sometimes what will happen, this is the aerial habitat, right? Sometimes the stem does not grow on the surface of the soil, but rather it grows into the soil, and such plants which show these underground stem modifications not only store food materials but also act as organs of perennation to tide over conditions unfavorable for growth, and they also help in vegetative propagation. The stem tuber of potato, rhizome of gingiber, and curcuma that is turmeric actually, and corm of Amorphophallus that is Jamincand, and colocasia and bulb of onion are few examples of plants that show such modifications, that is underground stem modification we can say. And the example for this we can take is gingiber, that is ginger, then solanum, that is potato, Solanum tuberosum it is, and few other examples will be the bulb of onion and etc. They all come under the underground stem modifications. Aerial stems of several plants show many modifications such as stem tendrils which help in climbing. These are the slender spirally coiled structures which may develop either from axillary buds as in gourds, that is as in gourds such as cucumber, pumpkins, watermelon etc., or terminal buds as in grapevines. And the buds of the stem may also get modified into woody, straight and pointed thorns, and thorns are found in many plants such as citrus and bougainvillea. So coming to the aerial stem modifications, we can take the examples of stem tendrils. So that is normally found in gourds, and what are they actually? They are like spirally coiled structures. And coming to the other stem modification, the other aerial stem modification, we can take the example of the thorns. Then thorns are found in many plants such as citrus and bougainvillea species, and they protect plant from grazing animals. Why these thorns are present? To protect the plant body from the grazing animals. That is a common fact that if a plant consists of thorns or spines on the surface of the body, then no animal will go towards it. So it is the best way of protecting itself. Some plants of arid regions modify their stems into fleshy, flattened, that is Opuntia. The best example we can see is Opuntia. We all know that in Opuntia, a leaf-like structure will be present that will be consisting of spines on the surface, right? So, or fleshy cylindrical, the example for that will be Euphorbia, or needle-like, that is Casuarina. Structures called as phylloclades. So, this kind of modification, the stem modification can be called as phylloclades, and they contain chlorophyll and carry out photosynthesis as the leaves are modified to spines or scale leaves, as I have told you. So, the leaves will be modified to spines or scale leaf, and it consists of thorns on its body surface, and they can be normally called as phylloclades, and they generally consist of chlorophyll, hence helping them to perform photosynthesis. In asparagus, the branches of limited growth that are modified to perform photosynthesis are called as cladophylls, and in some plants the vegetative birds as in Dioscorea or floral birds as in agave. The vegetative birds as in Dioscora or floral birds as in agave stored food materials, and when they detach from the parent plants, they develop adventitious roots and help in vegetative reproduction. These structures are called as bulbils. Underground stems in some grasses are strawberry, and subaerial stems in oxalis spread to new niches and form new plants when older parts die. Such plants are called as runners. So this is also one kind of stem modification, that is runners. And in plants like Nerium and Jasmine, a slender lateral branch called as stolon arises from the base of the main axis, and after growing aerially for some time arches downwards to touch the ground and produce adventitious roots. So what will happen actually? In stolons, the stem bend towards the surface of the soil, and again from here adventitious roots will start growing and it will give rise to a new plant. So this kind of stem modification can be termed as stolons. And in some aquatic plants like Pistia and Eichhornia, the best example you can take, a lateral branch of one internode length called offset, which bears a rosette of leaves at each node, and a tuft of balancing roots arising from the base of the discoid stem is found. And in banana, pineapple and chrysanthemum, the lateral branches originate from the basal and underground portion of the main stem, grow horizontally beneath the soil, and then come out obliquely upward, giving rise to leafy shoots, and these branches are called as suckers. So this is the last modification of the stem, that is suckers, that can be normally found in banana, chrysanthemum, pineapple and etc. And all these subaerial stem modifications are also useful for the vegetative propagation. That is the use of these subaerial modifications actually. So we can see that there are certain modifications of the stem like stem tendrils, then bulbils, runners, stolons and etc., where we can see that the stem is modified into various structures depending on the type of necessity. So that was all about this stem. Our next topic is leaf. So we all know that the leaf is lateral, generally flattened structure borne on the stem. We all know what is a leaf, right? A flattened structure that will be normally forming on the stem, and it develops at the node and bears a bud in its axil, and the axillary bud later develops into a branch. Leaves originate from shoot apical meristem and are arranged in an acropetal order. They are the most important vegetative organs for photosynthesis. We all know that leaves are the main site for photosynthesis, as they consist of green color pigment that will be called as chlorophyll. So coming to the different parts of the leaves, a typical leaf consists of three main parts. That will be normally a leaf base that attaches the leaf to the stem, and the second will be the petiole, and the third one will be the lamina. Lamina will be the surface of the leaf actually, and the leaf is attached to the stem by the leaf base, as I have told you, and may bear two lateral small leaf-like structures that will be called as stipules. And in monocotyledons, the leaf base expands into a sheath covering the stem. partially or wholly, and in some leguminous plants the leaf base may become swollen, which is called as pulvinous, and the petiole helps in exposing the lamina to light. Long, thin, flexible petioles allow leaf blades to flutter in wind, thereby cooling the leaf and bringing fresh air to leaf surface. And the lamina or the leaf blade is the green expanded part of the leaf with veins and veinlets. These are the structures that will be termed as veins, and coming to the veinlets, again the small extensions will be there on the veins, that will be called as veinlets. And there is usually a middle prominent vein which is known as the midrib. Veins provide rigidity to the leaf blade and act as channels of transport of water, minerals and food materials. And the shape, margin, apex and extent of incision of lamina vary in different leaves. How the veins and veinlets are arranged on the lamina of the leaf actually. And the veinlets form a network. The venation is termed as reticulate venation. And when the veins run parallel to each other within the lamina, the venation is termed as parallel venation. Leaves of dicotyledonous plants generally possess reticulate venation, while the parallel venation is the characteristic feature of the most monocotyledons. So this parallel venation can be seen generally in monocots, and this reticulate venation can be seen in dicots. So coming to the different types of leaves, the leaves is said to be simple when its lamina is entire or when incised and the incisions do not touch the midrib. So that kind of leaf can be called as a simple leaf, and when the incisions or the lobes we can say of the lamina reach up to the midrib, breaking it into a number of leaflets, the leaf is called as compound. So that will be the opposite of the simple leaves, and a bud is present in the axil of the petiole in both simple as well as in compound leaves, but not in the axil of the leaflets of the compound leaves. So that was the first classification of leaf, in which the leaf was classified into two, that is the simple, and the second one was the compound. So now if we proceed forward, we can see that the compound leaves are again classified into two types, that is pinnately compound leaves and palmately compound leaves. In a pinnately compound leaf, a number of leaflets are present on the common axis, that is called as rachis, and the best example for the pinnately compound leaves is the neem. And coming to the palmately compound leaves, the leaflets are attached at the common point, that is at the tip of the petiole. The example for this will be the silk or the cotton plant. So that was all about the types of leaves. Now let us move forward towards our next topic. On what basis the leaves are modified? Let us see that. Leaves are often modified to perform functions other than photosynthesis, because we all know that the main function of the leaf is to perform photosynthesis, and the functions that are there other than this main function, on that basis the leaves are modified into various structures. They are converted into tendrils for climbing as in peas, or in spines for reduction in transpiration, and for defense as in cacti. And the fleshy leaves of onion and garlic store food material, and in some plants such as Australian acacia, the leaves are pinnately compound, in which the leaflets are small and short leaved, and the petioles in these plants expand, become green and synthesize food, and these are called as phyllodes. And insectivorous leaves will be there, like example will be the pitcher plant or Nepenthes we can take, where leaves are modified to trap insects for their nitrogen requirement. And leaves may also be modified to help in vegetative propagation, like in Bryophyllum, epiphyllous birds which arise from the notches of the leaves develop adventitious roots, and when they detach, develop into individual plants. The next topic that we are going to learn is very important for your IP, and the name of our topic is inflorescence. So a thing of beauty is the joy of flower. Like we all know that the beauty of flowers lies not only in the color of petals but also in the mode of arrangement of flowers on the floral shoot, right? We all love flowers because of their arrangement, not only for their colors, and that arrangement of flowers on the floral axis can be termed as inflorescence. And a flower is a modified shoot wherein the shoot apical meristem changes to floral meristem. We all know that, and the internodes do not elongate, and the axis that is called as pedicel gets condensed. So depending on whether the apex gets covered into a flower or continues to grow, two major inflorescences can be seen actually. They can be defined. And the name of that two major inflorescences are, the first one is the racemose and the second one will be the cymose. So in racemose type of inflorescence, the main axis continues to grow and the flowers are borne laterally in an acropetal succession on the main peduncle. That can be called as simple inflorescence actually, or on its branches that will be called as compound inflorescence, which also arise in the acropetal succession. And there are several subtypes in the racemose category. Again, it can be classified into different types. Commonly occurring ones are described, like in Crotalaria and Mangifera indica, the pattern is raceme, while in members of cassia and cauliflower it is called as coreme, and in which all the flowers are brought to the same height due to the varied lengths of the pedicels, even though they are borne at different nodes. So what will happen in coreme type of racemose inflorescence, all the flowers are brought to the same height with the help of its pedicel. In onion and members of Apiaceae, that is Umbelliferae, like carrot, the flowers appear to have arisen from the same point of the peduncle, and such inflorescence is called as umbel type. So the flowers here arise from the same point of the peduncle actually. The example for this can be the onions, and it is covered by a hole of bracts that is called as involucre. Acropetal arrangement of sessile flowers on the peduncle is seen in spike of Achyranthes. Another one is the spike, where the acropetal arrangement can be seen on the on the peduncle, and members of Poaceae like grasses. Plants such as Musa, Cocos and Colocasia show sessile, unisexual and neuter flowers arranged in acropetal succession that are protected actually by modified bracts that can be called as spathe, and such inflorescence can be termed as spadix. And sometimes what will happen, the unisexual flowers or the bisexual sessile flowers develop contributorily on a condensed peduncle, as in member of Asteraceae and like Tridax and sunflower. Such an arrangement of flowers is called as head inflorescence. So that was all about the racemose inflorescence, that can be again classified into coreme, umbel, spike, spadix and head inflorescences. And now is the time for the cymose type of inflorescence. Here the main axis terminates into a flower, hence it shows limited growth, because the main axis itself is forming a flower. That is what the reason it is showing the limited growth. And the flowers are borne in a basipetal order, either on a branched or unbranched peduncle. In hibiscus, Rosa sinensis and Datura, the peduncle is unbranched and bears a single flower, and it is called as solitary cyme. A three-flowered cymose inflorescence found in plants like Bougainvillea and Jasmine is known as cymule. And when the peduncle is branched, the cymose type is further divided based on the number of branches formed, and these are called as monocacial cyme and dicacial cyme actually. In monocacial cyme, what will happen? Only one branch will be growing at each time. The example for that will be the Hamelia. And for the dicacial cyme, what will happen? The growth of two branches can be seen at the same time, and the example for that will be Ipomea. And polycacial cyme, where more than two branches will grow at each time, the example for that will be Nerium. So that was all about the inflorescence. Let us end the class here itself. We will meet in our next class and will complete the topics like the flower, the fruit, the seed and etc. I hope you all have understood the chapter very well. Let us meet in our next class. Thank you.